Today we walk among giants, the white and orange hoodoos of rock in the genuinely unbelievable Bryce Canyon. Day or night, this national park amazes in all kinds of ways. We were in good spirits on the morning of day 61. We checked out of the hotel in Panguitch before the office was even open and drove one last time through the town, which we hadn't really seen much of. Our destination was Bryce Canyon National Park, about half an hour away. The reason for arriving so early was to get a campsite before it filled up. They didn't take reservations, just first come, first served. And with all our intricate plans for this week, for this day we didn't have a plan B. We pulled up to the gate about 9 a.m. The ranger there said she didn't know how the campsite system worked, but that they hadn't been that busy. And inside we did find the campsite host and got a site with no problem. As others were just waking up in their tents, we set up ours. Despite it being June, the weather was cool and sunny. The visitor center at Bryce Canyon is a very educational one. It explains the origin of the famous rock towers, called hoodoos, that are the park's main attraction. Most interestingly, for me, Bryce Canyon is the top step of the so-called Grand Staircase. As you move south through Utah and into Arizona from here, different rock layers end in cliffs, exposing the next layer down. As we now know from the Painted Desert, different layers have different colors. So there are the aptly named chocolate cliffs, vermilion cliffs, white cliffs, gray cliffs, and in high altitude Bryce Canyon here, pink cliffs. We didn't want to do any hiking, of course, to let Maceo's foot heal, and Bryce Canyon was perfect for us. One road winds down through forests along the top of the pink cliffs, 18 miles from the visitor center to the end. Pullouts and scenic vistas appear every mile or two. The main attraction is coming soon, but first I'll go ahead and tell you now, we passed this spot in the road 6 times over the day, and 5 of those times saw a deer or pronghorn beside or in the road. A bonus from Bryce. Our first scenic spot along the road was, fittingly, Bryce Point. Finally we got to see for ourselves the vast undulating fields of orange and white hoodoos among the dark green fir trees. A stunning sight. The hoodoos here aren't formed by flowing water so much, but by seeping water. Temperatures reach freezing at night 180 days a year. Snowmelt, or rainwater from the daytime, enters cracks in the rock, expanding when it freezes and breaking away parts of the rock walls called fins. The white roof you see here will eventually get cracked away and the orange underneath will become hoodoos. Eventually those too will crumble away. Bryce Canyon and the entire Grand Staircase is one of the best places on Earth to see rock layers and cliffs like this because it hasn't been carved up by glaciers or disrupted by rising mountains. It's undisturbed, geology in almost mint condition, one of the world's wildest and most beautiful sights. For today's picnic, we got lucky. One of the 2 tables at the final viewpoint had just opened up. And on a trip full of scenic lunches, Bryce was something else altogether. Having seen most of the viewpoints, we went back to take care of something. Our motels and campsites for the rest of the week were booked, but my contract with Enterprise was ending, and I had to extend it somehow. We found Wi-Fi, and I tried to call the Enterprise in Los Angeles where we picked up the car, but it was hard to hear. I had to send an email instead, and waited nervously all day for a reply. I had no idea how the situation would affect this week's schedule. We spent the afternoon in the campsite, resting. And for about 2 hours, a deer wandered around right across the dirt road from us. Not shy at all, even when we got up close. I couldn't stop taking pictures. Later, after the campsite dinner, blood sugar 155, quite good, we drove by yet more distracting wildlife to see the one viewpoint that we'd skipped earlier, on purpose. Sunset Point. A steep but short incline leads down to a path actually among the towering hoodoos. At sunset, the lighting and shadows were dramatic, and the rock shapes here are some of the most famous. This prominent tower is called Thor's Hammer, and is featured not only on the Visitor Center sign, but on one of the tokens we bought. My favorite was probably this wall, with its window shaped like an arrowhead. The moon whetted my appetite for the night sky, which even gets its own special section in the park brochure. Back at the campsite, I waited for the sun to finally actually go down. It seemed to take forever. Masio had found the brief walk back up the incline at Sunset Point exhausting and drifted off to sleep early. So I left her resting in the tent and about 10 o'clock drove back myself to Sunset Point to see the stars. A few other people were there, and you'd hear a distant voice every now and then, but mostly the atmosphere here at night was just spooky and fascinating. I hoped I wouldn't see any rattlesnakes or mountain lions, and I walked down the dark path. The moon was bright, and my eyes adjusted eventually, and despite the moonlight, my camera was still able to pick up quite a few stars. I found the very short hike back up to the car exhausting as well, and was feeling a bit lightheaded by the time I got back to the campsite. My sleep, too, was quick and deep. People have asked me, looking back, what my #1 favorite park on this trip was. It's hard to say, I don't really have one favorite. But when pressed, I usually say Bryce Canyon. Its scale, colors, shapes, and uniqueness were all, in many ways, a high point of the whole 90 days. Tomorrow, we finally realize that yes, we have to go out of our way to take care of the car. But actually, we end up at another hospital, which leads, inevitably, to a big and unexpected rethink of the rest of this trip.